Hi and welcome to Craft with Hayley. This is my first card in this month's online class. We're going to be doing a few different techniques this evening. The first one is going to be this effect here for this card, which is the clay, which we're going to dye a certain colour to match the rest of our card, and we're going to go from there. So let's start with the clay then. Okay, so you're just going to grab yourself some clay. You can see mine's getting very well used. Inside the self-seal pouch, it'll keep your clay nice and moist, and then you want to pull out a blob of clay. Technical term that is, blob. Okay, when we've got a bit, I'm doing far too much here for what I need, but you get the gist. We want to just pop a couple of drops of re-inker into the middle. Now I'm using the Jamie Oliver pizza technique because I'm not a glove girl. Now if you don't mind gloves, then you'll be fine, pop some gloves on. But if you do mind gloves, then just use the Jamie Oliver effect, which basically is always folding everything in, and you shouldn't get too messy. Okay, you can see already I'm getting a bit messy, but you know what? I don't mind a bit of mess. Okay, so we're just going to keep rubbing that in until it becomes a nice colour. Okay, so you can see that's already gone a lovely crisp cantaloupe colour. If I wanted it a bit darker, I can add a bit more until I've got it exactly the colour I like. If you want to turn it a really dark colour, maybe like bright red, say you were doing a Christmas flower, or you know, you wanted buttons to match something that was bright pink or something like that. If it's a very bright colour, I would suggest you take your marker to the finished clay product and colour it in. Okay, you're going to get a much richer colour. It's similar to icing, I think. Icing, you have to add paste rather than colour, food colouring in, don't you? So I think that's the same principle here. Okay, that's a much better colour. Okay. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to pop that into a clay mould. So bear with me a second. Okay, thanks for bearing with me. I just had to pop to the freezer and get out my mould. What tends to happen this time of year is it's very warm, and if obviously you're in a hot country, it's warm all the time. You'll find it much easier to pop your mould into the freezer when you've got your clay in there. Just for 10 minutes or so, it just makes it have a nice crisp image when it pops out. So in true Blue Peter style, here's one I did earlier. Hurrah! If you want to make it really neat, you can, or alternatively you can do what I do, which is just to trim it off with some scissors. Okay, so just snip off any bits that don't look like they should be there. Okay, it's a bit severe cut, that one. Yeah, that's looking good. Let's take that bit off there. Okay, so that's our finished clay. I'll put to one side to put on our project later. Okay, so moving along, what we're going to do next is we're going to take a card base, and our card base is going to be, I tend to make mine 14.5 centimetres by 21 centimetres, so it's scored at 10.5. The reason I do 14.5 and not half of A4 is so that each layer sits on top of it easier, and I don't have to work in funny portions of card. So my next layer will be 10 by 14, and then, you know, likewise. Obviously that's not something you have to do. So this layer is my 10 by 14. I'm going to whiz it through the embossing folder. Now this particular stamp set and embossing folder and punch that I'm using all coordinate. So we have gorgeous Mosaic Madness punches, not punches, that's obviously stamps, a punch that matches, and then the embossing folder as well, which is fabby. And if you buy the stamps and punch together, you get 15% off. Now you'll notice on my embossing folder it's got a bit of a raggedy edge, okay, and that's because whenever I get my embossing folders I tend to chop a couple of millimetres off the end, and the reason for that is they'll go both ways through the big shot that way. This one doesn't matter quite so much because you know, the pattern doesn't matter which way it is, but some embossing folders really do matter, so that's just my little tip for you. So I'm just going to stick that through the embossing machine. And voila, here it comes. So when you look at you've got two sides. One side that is sort of more debossed and one side that is more raised. Okay, now I'm going to use this raised side because I want to stick my images on the top so it looks like I've stamped on them, but actually I'm going to stamp separately and punch them out. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a scrap piece of paper and I'm going to grab my crisp cantaloupe. Oh, just gorgeous colours. I'm going to grab one of my stamps. Okay, so I'm just going to tap, tap, tap and stamp. Tap, tap, tap and stamp. Okay, and then we're just going to punch that image out. Now if you turn your punch upside down, you can see where it's going to punch. I'm just going to line it up and punch it out. Okay, the newer the punch, the further they will spring. So you see I'm protecting mine slightly because it's quite a new punch. Okay, we're going to add those to our embossed piece of card. A little bit of snail, and then we're just going to start sticking them on. Now you can see, because they match perfectly, it looks like I stamped on there rather than I punched it and embossed it and added it onto the top. Okay, so we're just going to keep going with that until we get somewhere here. Okay, now you'll notice here I've trimmed off any extra that was hanging over, because obviously if I had stamped I wouldn't be able to have bits hanging over, so I've done that accordingly. I'm then going to just finish off my card, which is a little strip of card. Now sometimes ribbon would be gorgeous here, but sometimes we just don't have either the right colour ribbon or the right size ribbon or the thickness or whatever else, and I think a little strip of card sometimes can be just as effective. Okay, the next punch and stamp I'm going to use is the gorgeous Label of Love, which is this stamp set. Lots of different greetings in it. I'm going to use one on each of the 3 cards this month, but for this particular one I'm going to use the Just For You. Okay, so again I want my scrap piece of card, and we're just going to tap, tap, tap and then give it a good old stamp. We're going to punch that out and add it to the top of our card. Okay, I've added a couple of pearls to this as well, and again the tip for pearls for you is to get your scissors underneath the pearls. Okay, we all think it's really useful to have tweezers, but actually sometimes they're not good, because the tweezers will just take the pearl away and leave the glue dot behind, which is the whole purpose of having them really, is so that they're self-adhesive. You can see I don't like to waste my pearls in any way, shape or form, so I'm taking some of the ones that are part of the strip as well. Okay, so you can just carry on building up, but like I say, just underneath rather than trying to ping it off from the top. Okay, so last but no means least, we are then going to add our little flower. Okay, and to add the flower I would recommend wet glue. So maybe a Tombow or something along those lines. So that is our finished card. I'm hoping you like it. Like I say, all the ingredients are available through Stampin' Up, through myself over at www.craftwithhayley.com, or my email address is at the end of this video. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Do stay tuned or pop back and see the next 2 cards in this month's online class as well. Thank you. Bye.